The dragon moved slowly across the red desert. Each step hurt. Each breath felt like fire in its throat. The creature's name was Vex, and it had been dying for 300 years. The desert stretched forever in every direction. Red sand covered everything. 2 suns burned in the sky, making the air hot and thick. Vex's giant body left deep tracks in the sand as it walked. The dragon's wings hung down, too weak to lift. Once, those wings had been beautiful. They had glowed with colors that could make entire worlds stop and stare. Now they looked gray and dead. Vex's scales had lost their shine. They looked like ash from an old fire. The dragon had once been strong and proud. It had led armies. It had protected innocent people across the galaxy. But that was a long time ago. Now, Vex could barely remember what it felt like to be whole and healthy. The thirst was the worst part. Vex thought about water constantly. The planet had plenty of water. There were oceans, rivers, and lakes everywhere. Rain fell from the sky. Ice covered the mountains. Water was all around, but Vex could not drink any of it. The dragon's punishment was cruel and specific. The people who had sent Vex here had poisoned all the water on the planet. They had created a special chemical that bonded to every water molecule. For any other creature, the water was perfectly fine. Birds drank from the lakes. Plants grew near the rivers. But for Vex species, one sip meant instant death. So Vex suffered. The dragon watched rain fall and felt desperate with thirst. It stood at the edge of clear lakes, seeing its own reflection in the water. The dragon could look at water, but never drink it. This was the punishment for refusing to follow orders. 300 years ago, Vex had been a military commander. During a great war, Vex leaders had given a terrible order. They told Vex to destroy a moon colony. 2 million refugees lived there. These were families with children and old people who could barely walk. They had no weapons. They were just trying to survive the war. Vex had refused the order. The dragon had helped the refugees escape instead. 2 million lives were saved. But the military tribunal had called Vex a traitor. They said showing mercy during wartime was the same as treason. Vex tried to explain that killing innocent people was wrong. The tribunal would not listen. So they sent Vex to this prison planet. They put quantum shackles on the dragon's very essence. These invisible chains prevented Vex from escaping. The dragon could not teleport to another place. It could not shift between dimensions. It could not even send a message to its own people. Vex was completely trapped. The years had been long and painful. At first, Vex had tried to escape many times. The dragon had thrown itself against the quantum shackles until its body nearly broke. Vex had searched every corner of the planet for help, but the tribunal had planned everything carefully. They wanted Vex to suffer for centuries before finally dying. Now, after 300 years, Vex's mind had become simple. The dragon did not think about the past anymore. It did not think about the future. Vex only thought about one thing: water. Clean water. Just one drop of clean water before death finally came. The dragon's massive clawed feet moved slowly through the sand. 1 foot, then another. Vex did not know where it was going. There was nowhere to go. But the dragon kept moving, because stopping meant giving up completely. Then something changed. The skies suddenly filled with fire and light. Vex lifted its head weakly and looked up. Something was falling through the atmosphere. It was burning bright as it came down toward the planet. The dragon's ancient eyes focused on the falling object. It was a ship, not one of the automated drones that sometimes came to check the planet's monitoring systems. This was different. This was a real ship with people inside, and it was crashing. The vessel hit the ground hard about 20 meters away from Vex. The impact sent up a huge cloud of red dust. The ship's metal hull screeched and tore. Smoke poured from the wreckage. Vex felt something stir inside its chest. It was a feeling the dragon had not experienced in many decades. Hope. A crashed ship meant there might be survivors. Survivors meant there would be supplies. And supplies might include water. Real water from another world. Water that was not poisoned. The dragon began to move faster. Every step still hurt terribly, but the possibility of relief pushed Vex forward. The dragon's mind reached out, using the weak telepathic abilities that remained. Yes, there was a life form near the crash. One person, injured but alive. Vex focused harder and felt the biological signature of the survivor. The dragon's heart began to beat faster. The survivor was human, a person from Earth. Vex had met humans before, many centuries ago during the war. They were a young species. Most beings in the galaxy barely noticed them. Humans had soft bodies and short lives. Their technology was limited compared to the great civilizations. But humans had something Vex desperately needed right now. They drank water. Simple H2O water from their home planet. Water that had not been touched by the Tribunal's curse. Water that passed through human bodies and became safe. Vex climbed over the last sand dune and saw the survivor. It was a young female in a torn uniform. She was pulling herself out of the smoking wreckage. Her emergency beacon lay broken beside her on the ground. The woman was injured and moving slowly. The dragon tried to approach quietly, but that was impossible. Vex was too large. The human turned around and saw the massive creature. She froze in fear. Vex could feel her terror through their weak mental connection. The woman's hand moved toward a weapon on her belt. The ancient warrior, the being that had once commanded entire fleets, lowered its huge head to the sand. Vex made itself as small as possible. The dragon did not want to frighten her any more than necessary. Using every bit of remaining strength, Vex pushed a single thought into the woman's mind. The dragon's mental voice cracked with desperation. 300 years of pride disappeared in that moment. Vex was begging. A creature that had lived for thousands of years was begging someone who would live maybe 100 years at most. But Vex did not care about pride anymore. The dragon just wanted one taste of clean water. Just one drop of mercy from this stranger who had fallen from the stars. The human stared at the dragon with wide eyes. Her hand still touched her weapon. Neither of them moved. In that moment, both their fates hung in the balance. The dying dragon and the crashed pilot. Two beings who should never have met. Two lives that were about to become connected in ways neither could imagine. Lieutenant Kate Murphy had survived many dangerous situations in her 12 years of military service. She had been through combat, ship malfunctions, and near-fatal accidents in space. She had trained for hostile aliens and survival situations. But nothing had prepared her for a dying dragon begging for water. Her hand stayed on her weapon, but she did not pull it out. The gun would be useless anyway against something this massive. The dragon's head alone was bigger than her entire ship. One swing of those claws could end her life instantly. But the creature was not attacking. It was shaking. It looked weak and desperate. Kate's survival training took over automatically. She needed to assess the threat and evaluate her resources. The dragon was clearly dying. Its scales looked brittle and faded. The way it held itself showed complete exhaustion. Kate had seen wounded soldiers before. She recognized that same desperate look in the dragon's eyes. Kate spoke aloud, keeping her voice steady despite her fear. She asked if the dragon could understand her. The response did not come a sound. Instead, thoughts appeared directly in her mind. It was the strangest feeling Kate had ever experienced, like hearing words without using her ears. The dragon's mental voice said yes, it understood. Then it begged again for water. Kate's mind raced. A talking alien dragon that could read minds. The desperation in that mental voice sounded real and genuine. Kate had heard that same tone from dying soldiers calling for help. She asked the obvious question. Why did the dragon not drink from the lakes? She had seen water sources from orbit before her crash. This planet had plenty of water. The dragon lifted its massive head slightly. Kate suddenly felt a wave of sadness, so strong it almost knocked her backward. Images flooded her mind. Not words this time, but actual memories. She saw the dragon being dragged in chains. She saw a courtroom filled with strange alien beings. She saw scientists working with glowing containers. She saw the dragon trying to drink from a stream and collapsing in terrible pain. Kate whispered in understanding. They had poisoned all the water specifically for the dragon. 300 years of dying from thirst. Kate felt sick to her stomach. Whatever this creature had done to deserve imprisonment, This kind of torture was beyond cruel. It was pure evil. She looked down at her own water supply. Her emergency pack from the ship held maybe 10 liters. In this heat, she would need at least 2 liters per day to survive. That gave her 5 days, maybe 6 if she was very careful. Kate asked why the dragon thought her water would be different. The dragon's thoughts became clearer and more focused. It showed her molecular structures and chemical compositions. Kate was not a scientist, but she understood the basic idea. The poison was designed specifically for the dragon's biology. It bonded to water molecules in a way that made them deadly to the dragon species. But human water, filtered through human biology and processed by human metabolism, would be different. The poison would not affect it. Kate said slowly that the dragon wanted her to give up her water, the water she needed to survive. The dragon's mental voice pleaded. Just a little, it said. It promised to help Kate in return. It could teach her to find water on the planet. Water that was safe for humans, but not for the dragon. Kate laughed without humor. That was quite a negotiation. She would give up her survival supplies, and the dragon would teach her how to find more. But what if the dragon was lying? What if it drank her water and then left her die? The dragon made a low rumbling sound. It said it could kill Kate right now if it wanted. It could take all her water. It could even drink from her body itself. But it would not do that. The dragon refused to kill innocent people. That was why it was imprisoned here. More images flooded Kate's mind. She saw a moon filled with families trying to evacuate. She saw military orders to destroy everything. She saw the dragon refusing those orders. She saw the trial and the punishment. Kate said softly that the dragon had saved 2 million people, and they had locked it up for showing mercy. The dragon's mental voice was bitter. It said that mercy was considered weakness during wartime. At least, that was what the tribunal had decided. Kate looked at the dragon carefully. This was not a monster. This was a soldier who had made the hardest choice possible and had paid for it with centuries of torture. Kate thought about her own military career. She remembered times when she had questioned orders. She remembered innocent faces she had seen in war zones. She thought about what she would have done in the dragon's position. Then she made her decision. Kate unscrewed her water canteen. She told the dragon they would do this her way. She was trained in field medicine. She would give small amounts of water and monitor the dragon's reaction carefully. If the dragon had an allergic response, or if this did not work, she was not wasting her entire supply. The dragon's eyes widened. Kate felt a surge of hope so powerful it almost knocked her down. The dragon's mental voice asked in disbelief if she was really going to help. Kate stepped closer despite every instinct telling her to run. She said yes, but there was a deal. The dragon would teach her how to survive on this planet. It would help her signal for rescue. And when they both got off this planet, the dragon would testify about what had been done to it. This kind of punishment was not justice. It was torture. The dragon said quietly that no one would believe a prisoner over the tribunal. Kate said firmly that they would believe a human witness. Humans were new to the galactic community. They were not part of ancient politics or old grudges. Her testimony would be unbiased and trustworthy. The dragon lowered its head closer. Kate could see her own reflection in its massive eye. The dragon's mental voice asked if she would really risk her life for a stranger, for a convicted criminal. Kate poured a small amount of water into her palm. She said the dragon had refused to kill innocent people. That did not make a criminal in her book. That made it someone with a conscience. She held out her hand with water pooling in her palm. The dragon's long tongue, rough and hot, carefully lapped at the water. Kate watched closely for any signs of trouble. The dragon suddenly froze. Its entire body went rigid. For a terrible moment, Kate thought she had made a horrible mistake. Then she felt it through their mental connection. Not pain or distress. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. The dragon's scales flickered just for a second with the faintest hint of color. The dragon's mental voice trembled. It worked. After 300 years, clean water, real tears fell from the dragon's enormous eyes. Kate stood there in the alien desert. Her crashed ship smoked behind her. She held a water canteen and watched an ancient dragon cry with relief. She tried to keep her voice steady. She said it looked like they were in this together now. The dragon should start teaching her how to find water that would not kill her. The dragon's mental voice was still weak, but carried something new, something that might have been hope. It thanked Kate and said its name was Vex. It swore it would see her survive. Kate nodded and introduced herself. She said they were both getting off this planet alive. That was not a hope. That was a mission objective. Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. For the first time in 3 centuries, the dragon felt something besides pain and despair. A human stranger had shown more mercy than an entire galactic tribunal. A young woman with a short lifespan had given hope to an ancient being that had lived for thousands of years. They were an unlikely pair, a dying dragon and a crashed pilot. Different species, different worlds, different lives. But in that moment, they became partners. And that partnership would change everything. The first full day of their partnership almost killed Kate twice. Vex had warned her that the crystal formations sticking out of the desert floor contained moisture inside them. But getting that moisture out required careful work and precise technique. Kate spent 4 hours in the burning heat, carefully breaking open the crystals and collecting the liquid inside. Her hands were cut and bleeding by the time she gathered half a liter. Vex's mental voice cautioned her constantly. The dragon was stronger now after drinking the clean water. It could maintain their telepathic connection without as much effort. Vex told Kate that the water would kill her if she drank it straight. She needed to filter it 3 times. First through cloth from her uniform, then through carbon filters from her ship's air recycler, and finally let it sit in sunlight for exactly 2 hours. Kate followed the instructions exactly as Vex described them. The processed water tasted terrible, like metal and dust, but it did not make her sick. She drank carefully, rationing every drop. Her body's natural filtration system did the rest, breaking down the trace toxins that would have been deadly to Vex. The exchange system they developed was strange and inefficient, but it worked. Kate would drink the processed water and wait several hours. Then she would give Vex small amounts of her sweat, tears, or saliva. Sometimes she would breathe into a collection device she had salvaged from her ship's medical kit, letting condensation gather. Every drop of moisture that passed through her human biology became safe for the dragon to consume. Kate muttered to herself on the second day while wringing sweat from her uniform into a container. She said this was the weirdest survival situation she had ever been in, and she had once survived 3 weeks eating nothing but emergency ration paste and recycled urine. Vex made a sound that might have been a chuckle. The dragon said it had lived 3,000 years and had seen stars born and civilizations fall. Never had it imagined its life would depend on a human's perspiration. Kate said that adaptability was kind of humanity's specialty. Humans were not the strongest or the smartest or the fastest, but they were really good at figuring things out when everything went wrong. As the days passed, Kate learned more about the dragon and its people. Vex shared memories during the long, hot afternoons when it was too dangerous to search for water. Kate saw a world she had never imagined. Cities built from living crystal that sang in harmony. Ships that could fold space like paper. Battles fought across dimensions she could not even comprehend. Kate said, piecing together the images, that Vex had been commander. The dragon had led entire fleets. Vex confirmed this. It had served its people with honor for 800 years, until the day it chose conscience over orders. Vex showed Kate that day in complete detail. The moon colony had been designated a military target, but dragon scouts had revealed the truth. It was refugees and civilians from 3 different species who had fled the war. They had no weapons and no defenses, just families trying to survive. There were children and old ones who could barely walk. The order came directly from the War Council. Destroy the moon. Leave no witnesses. Eliminate the potential enemy's stronghold before it could be fortified. Vex had refused. Instead, the dragon gave the refugees time to evacuate. It warned them of the danger. It helped them escape to neutral space. 2 million souls were saved. And for that mercy, the tribunal called Vex a traitor. Kate felt anger burning in her chest. She had seen enough war to know that sometimes the hardest choice was the right one. She told Vex that the tribunal was wrong. Vex had done the right thing. The dragon said quietly that the law said otherwise. Kate responded firmly that sometimes laws were made by people who had forgotten what they were supposed to protect. Vex had remembered, and that took more courage than following orders ever could. On the fourth day, Kate's hands shook as she worked. The constant dehydration was taking its toll on her body. She was processing water as fast as she could, but maintaining 2 lives on this hellish planet was pushing her to her limits. Vex noticed immediately. The dragon said Kate was weakening. She was giving Vex too much. Kate lied and said she was fine. She nearly dropped the collection container. Vex said she was not fine. She was risking her life again. Kate sat down heavily in the dragon's shadow, grateful for a break from the sun. She told Vex she was not going to let it die of thirst after 300 years just because she was a little tired. They were partners now, and partners did not quit on each other. Vex was quiet for a long moment. Then Kate felt something unexpected. The dragon was teaching her something new, sharing knowledge directly through their mental link. She saw techniques for meditation and for controlling her body's metabolism. She learned how to reduce water loss through sheer willpower. Kate asked in disbelief if Vex was teaching her alien meditation. The dragon explained that human species had strong will but weak control. It was showing her how to bridge that gap. If Kate was going to keep Vex alive, then Vex needed to keep Kate alive first. Kate practiced the techniques, and to her surprise, they worked. She could feel her body responding. Her breathing slowed down. Her perspiration reduced. It was not magic. It was just biology controlled through focus and tension. That evening, Kate watched the twin suns set over the red desert. She said to Vex that when she joined the Space Force, she thought she would explore new worlds and meet interesting aliens. She had not expected to become a living water filter for a dragon. Vex responded that when it refused those orders, it thought it would die with honor intact. It had not expected to survive through the compassion of a species it barely knew existed. Kate smiled and said life was funny that way, full of surprises. By the 5th day, something remarkable was happening. Vex's scales were starting to show hints of their original color. Not the full bioluminescent glory they once held, but flickers of blue and silver in certain lights. The dragon could move more easily now. Its mental voice was growing stronger with each passing hour. But Kate was declining. The constant work in the heat, the careful rationing, the stress of survival, it was all catching up to her. She knew she had maybe 3 more days before her body started shutting down. She could feel her strength fading with each passing hour. Kate said, try and keep her voice steady, that they needed a new plan. Their system worked, but it was not sustainable. They needed rescue, or they needed to find a way off this planet themselves. Vex's massive head turned toward her. Kate saw something in those ancient eyes. Determination mixed with concern. The dragon said it had an idea. It was dangerous, but possible. Kate told Vex she was listening. The dragon explained that the quantum shackles prevented it from dimensional travel, but they assumed Vex was weak. If the dragon could absorb enough clean water quickly, it might generate enough power to tear a small hole in dimensional space. Not enough to escape, but enough to send a signal for help. Kate understood immediately. Vex was talking about using her as a water processing plant on overdrive. She said quietly that doing that could kill her. Vex agreed. Yes, it could. That was why the dragon was asking, not demanding. Kate had already given more than Vex had any right to expect. Kate thought about her crashed ship and her dead beacon. She thought about her dwindling supplies. She thought about the dragon who had chosen mercy over orders. She thought about going home with an incredible story or dying alone in the desert. She asked how much water they were talking about. Vex said enough to risk everything. Enough to either save them both or kill them trying. Kate stood up. Her legs were shaky, but her resolve was firm. She said they should get to work. She had not survived 12 years in the Space Force to die on a prison planet. And Vex had not survived 300 years of torture to give up now. Vex's scales flickered with color. Kate felt determination flowing through their bond. They had a plan. It was crazy and dangerous and probably impossible. In other words, it was exactly the kind of plan a human would make. And they were going to try it together. Kate spent the entire night preparing. She stripped every useful component from her crashed ship and built what was essentially a water processing factory. The emergency medical bay became a filtration center. The ship's remaining power cells would drive pumps she created from the cooling system. Every piece of fabric, every filter, every container was repurposed for one goal: process as much water as humanly possible. Kate muttered to herself while connecting the last wire. She said this was insane. She was literally turning herself into a human water purifier for a dragon. Vex watched from nearby. The dragon's improved strength allowed it to help where possible. Vex reminded Kate of a human saying, "Go big or go home." Kate corrected the dragon. The saying was "go hard or go home." But yes, same idea. If they were doing this, they were doing it right. The plan was straightforward but brutal. Kate would spend 6 hours in extreme physical activity. She would process gallons of the poison water through her system. Running, exercises, anything to make her body work overtime. Every drop of sweat, every bit of moisture she produced would be captured and given to Vex. The dragon would drink continuously, building up power reserves it had not felt in 3 centuries. Then Vex would attempt to tear open dimensional space. Just for a moment, just enough to send a distress signal into the void. The quantum shackles would fight back, but if the dragon was strong enough and fast enough, it might work. The risks were enormous. Kate could die from dehydration. The shackles could kill Vex, or the attempt could fail completely, leaving them both worse off than before. Kate said this was the last chance to back out. She was checking her makeshift collection system one final time. Vex said it should be saying that to her. This would hurt. Kate's body was not designed for this kind of stress. Kate responded that her body was not designed to breathe recycled air in space either. But here she was. Humans were good at doing things they were not designed for. It was kind of their specialty. She started running in place. Her legs pumped hard. Her heart rate climbed rapidly. Within minutes, sweat was pouring down her face. The collection tubes she had attached to her body caught every drop. It was uncomfortable and exhausting and absolutely necessary. Vex positioned itself nearby, ready to drink immediately. The fresher the water, the better it would work. Kate pushed herself harder. She did burpees and jumping jacks. Anything to keep her body producing moisture. The twin suns climbed higher in the sky, turning the desert into an oven. Perfect conditions for what they needed. 2 hours in, Kate's legs were shaking badly. Her vision blurred at the edges. But the system was working. Vex was drinking steadily, and Kate could see the dragon's scales beginning to glow. Faint at first, then brighter. Colors she had never seen before danced across the dragon's body. Kate gasped between exercises and asked how much more was needed. Vex said 3 more hours, maybe 4. The dragon needed to be absolutely saturated with power. Kate wanted to collapse. Every muscle screamed in pain. Her mouth felt like sandpaper, but she kept moving. She thought about her family back on Earth. Her sister, who told her she was crazy for joining the Space Force. Her dad, who had been so proud when she made lieutenant. She thought about all the soldiers she had served with, the ones who had pushed past their limits when it mattered. Kate told herself she had this. Just a few more hours. She could do this. By hour 4, Kate was running on pure willpower alone. She had stopped thinking and stopped planning. Her body moved automatically like a machine. Vex kept drinking, and the dragon's power was building visibly now. The air around them crackled with energy. The sand beneath their feet began to vibrate. Vex's mental voice cut through Kate's exhaustion. The dragon said that was enough. Any more and Kate would die. Kate forced out the words between gasps. She was not done yet. Vex insisted she was done. The dragon had enough power. More than enough. Kate needed to stop before she killed herself. Kate collapsed to her knees, then to her side. The world spun around her. Vex moved quickly, positioning its massive body to shade her from suns. Cool shadow fell over Kate's burning skin. Kate whispered and asked if they got enough. Vex said yes. Now Kate needed to rest. The dragon needed her alive to see this work. Kate managed a weak laugh. No pressure or anything. Vex gave her water then from their carefully hoarded supply. Kate drank greedily. Her body was desperate to replace what she had lost. The dragon waited until she had finished before speaking again through their mental link. Vex thanked Kate for everything. If this did not work, the dragon wanted her to know that these few days had meant more than Kate could imagine. She had given Vex hope when there was none left. Kate told Vex to save the speeches. They were both getting out of here. That was not optional. Vex's eyes glowed with power and something else. Maybe affection, maybe respect. The dragon called Kate a stubborn human. Very well. Kate should hold on to something. This was going to be violent. Kate wedged herself between two rocks, bracing against what was coming. She watched as Vex stood to full height for the first time since they had met. The dragon was magnificent. Its scales blazed with bioluminescent glory, casting rainbow shadows across the red desert. Wings spread wide, catching the light. For a moment, Kate saw what Vex must have looked like in its prime, a being of terrible beauty and awesome power. Then Vex roared. The sound was not just noise. It was power given voice. Reality itself seemed to shudder and crack. The dragon's body glowed so bright Kate had to shield her eyes. She felt the dimensional fabric starting to tear. She felt the quantum shackles activating in response. Lightning erupted from nowhere. Bolts of pure energy arced across the sky, striking the ground around them. The quantum shackles materialized, visible now as chains of twisted light wrapped around Vex's body. They pulsed and fought back, trying to contain the dragon's power. But Vex was stronger than it had been in 300 years. Fueled by clean water, by hope, by desperate determination to save them both, the dragon pushed harder. The fabric of space screamed. Kate felt it in her bones. A sensation like the universe was being torn apart. A crack appeared in the air. Small at first, then wider. Through it, Kate glimpsed something impossible. Other dimensions, other realities. Swirling chaos that hurt to look at directly. Vex focused all its power on that crack, forcing open just enough. The dragon's mental voice amplified 1,000 times and screamed into that dimensional rift. A call for help that echoed across space and time. Coordinates, identity codes, a desperate plea from an imprisoned elder. Then the quantum shackles struck back with full force. Lightning converged on Vex from every direction. The dragon's roar turned to a scream of pure agony. The dimensional crack slammed shut with a sound like thunder. Vex collapsed. The dragon's massive body hit the ground so hard the impact created a crater in the sand. The silence that followed was absolute and terrifying. Kate pulled herself free from the rocks and ran to Vex. The dragon's scales were dark again and dull. Its eyes were closed. For a terrible moment, Kate thought it was dead. Then she felt it. The faintest mental whisper in her mind. Signal sent. Message delivered. Now they had to wait. Kate collapsed against Vex's side, exhausted beyond words. The dragon's body was still warm and still breathing. They had done it. Probably. Maybe. If anyone had received the signal. If anyone cared enough to respond. If they could survive long enough for rescue to arrive. Kate whispered that they did it. They actually did it. Vex's weak mental voice responded. Kate did it. This was her plan. Her sacrifice. Her stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. Kate closed her eyes, letting exhaustion take her. She mumbled that they were partners. They did it together. Above them, the twin suns continued their march across the sky, and somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, a signal traveled outward, a call for help from the most unlikely partnership in the galaxy, a dying dragon and a stubborn human refusing to give up, refusing to accept their fate, choosing hope over despair. Now, all they could do was wait and hope that someone was listening. Kate woke to the sound of engines screaming overhead. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. The dehydration and exhaustion might be making her mind play tricks. But then Vex's mental voice cut through the fog in her head. Ships, multiple vessels. They came. They actually came. Kate forced her eyes open and immediately had to shield them from a blinding spotlight. 3 massive ships hovered above the desert. Their engines kicked up storms of red sand. They were not human designs. The hulls were organic-looking, scaled like Vex's body, and shimmering with the same bioluminescent patterns. Kate whispered with a raw throat. These were Vex people. The dragon confirmed it. Relief, joy, and disbelief flooded through their mental connection. 300 years of imprisonment, and rescue had finally come. The ships landed with surprising grace for their size. Ramps extended downward, and dozens of dragons emerged. They were smaller than Vex and probably younger, but still impressive. They moved with military precision, spreading out to secure the area. Several rushed immediately to Vex. Their mental voices created a chorus Kate could feel but not understand. Then one of them turned to Kate. This dragon was clearly a commander. Its scales were marked with patterns that suggested rank. It approached Kate with purpose. She instinctively reached for her sidearm before remembering it was empty. The commander's mental voice entered Kate's mind. It stated that she was a human who sent a distress call with Elder Vex. Kate stood on shaky legs, trying to maintain some dignity, despite looking like she'd been dragged through hell. She introduced herself as Lieutenant Kate Murphy from Earth Space Force. And yes, that was them. The commander's massive head tilted, studying her carefully. It said that Elder Vex was imprisoned by galactic law. Kate understood this made her complicit in aiding a criminal. Kate shot back, too tired to be diplomatic. Her elder had refused to murder 2 million civilians. If that made them a criminal, then the legal system was broken, and if helping them made her complicit, then she would wear that badge proudly. Several dragons shifted at her tone. Vex made a warning rumble, but the commander's eyes seemed to gleam with something that might have been approval. It said Kate spoke like a warrior. Elder Vex had chosen well. Medical teams swarmed over both of them. Kate was lifted onto some kind of floating stretcher despite her protests. The dragon medics worked with efficient precision, hooking her up to IVs filled with fluids she could not identify. One of them communicated through broken mental images, showing her that the fluids were compatible with human biology. They had studied Earth species and prepared for this moment. Vex was receiving treatment too, surrounded by medical personnel. Kate watched as the elder dragon was carefully moved onto a larger transport platform. Even in their weakened state, Vex's presence commanded respect. Every younger dragon that passed offered a gesture that looked like a bow. Kate called out and asked where they were taking them. The commander responded that they were going to their medical facility. Both Kate and Vex required extensive treatment. The human body was not designed for what Kate had endured, and Elder Vex was barely alive after 3 centuries of torture. Kate wanted to argue, but her body had other ideas. The 4 fluids were working fast, and with them came the inevitable crash. Every muscle ached. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness took her was Vex's massive eye watching her, making sure she was safe. When Kate woke again, she was in a room that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The walls pulsed with soft light. Medical equipment surrounded her bed. Some of it was recognizable, but most of it was completely alien. And sitting beside her in a chair, clearly not designed for his species, was a human man in a military uniform. Colonel James Harrison said with a grin that it was about time Kate woke up. She had been out for 3 days. Kate's brain struggled to process this information. She asked what he was doing here and what she was doing here. Harrison leaned forward. Kate's distress beacon had died weeks ago. They thought she was dead. Then suddenly they got contacted by the Exathrin Collective saying they had one of their people and requesting immediate diplomatic presence. Kate had caused quite a stir. Kate said immediately, trying to sit up, that she needed to know about the dragon, about Vex. Were they okay? Harrison told her to relax. Vex was recovering, just like her. The Exathrin medical technology was apparently very advanced. They said both Kate and Vex would make full recoveries. Harrison's expression turned serious. He told Kate she needed to understand what she had done. She had not just saved one dragon. She had reopened a 300-year-old war crimes case. The Exathrin Collective was demanding a full tribunal review. They were claiming Kate was an unbiased witness from a neutral species. Kate processed this slowly. They wanted her to testify. Harrison said they wanted more than that. The galactic community was in an uproar. A human, a species most of them barely acknowledged, was providing evidence that one of their most sacred tribunals might have been wrong. It was chaos out there. Kate said firmly that it should be chaos. What they did to Vex was torture. 300 years of torture for showing mercy. If her testimony could fix that, then she would testify 1,000 times. Harrison smiled. That was what he had told the brass Kate would say. She had always been stubborn. His expression softened. He told Kate that her family had been notified she was alive. They were waiting to talk to her once she was cleared. Tears pricked Kate's eyes. Harrison said her dad cried when he heard the news. Her sister said she always knew Kate was too mean to die on some alien rock. Harrison stood up. He told Kate to rest up. She had a lot of people who wanted to talk to her. Politicians, scientists, journalists. She was a hero. Kate said quietly that she was not a hero. She just did what anyone would do. Harrison said that was where she was wrong. Most people would not have helped. Most people would have taken the water and run, leaving the dragon to die. Kate chose differently. That mattered. After Harrison left, Kate lay in the strange bed, processing everything. Through the wall, she could feel Vex's presence. Their mental connection was weaker now, muted by distance and medical intervention, but it was still there, a comfort. Days passed. Kate recovered quickly under the Exathrin medical care. They brought her real food, accommodating human dietary needs with surprising attention to detail. She learned that news of her rescue had spread across human space. Earth wanted her home. The military wanted debriefings. Scientists wanted to study the human Exathrin mental connection. But Kate refused to leave until she could see Vex. It took a week before the medical staff agreed. They led her through crystalline corridors to a massive chamber. And there, standing at full height for the first time since she had met them, was Vex. The transformation was stunning. The dragon scales gleamed with full bioluminescent glory. Patterns of blue and silver and gold danced across its body. Its wings stretched wide, each one larger than Kate's crashed ship had been. This was Vex as they were meant to be. Not a dying, desperate creature in the desert, but an elder of incredible power and presence. Kate felt suddenly very small. Then Vex lowered their massive head, and Kate felt a familiar mental touch. Hello, my friend. All the formality and all the worry melted away. Kate walked forward and placed her hand on Vex's scaled snout. She said Vex was looking better. The dragon's mental voice was warm. It said this was thanks to Kate. They told the dragon that the tribunal was being reconvened and that Kate had agreed to testify. Kate said of course she did. Someone needed to tell them they were wrong. Vex's mental voice carried warmth and something deeper. Gratitude that went beyond words. The Exathrin collective wished to honor Kate. They were offering her anything within their power. Technology, knowledge, wealth beyond measure. Kate thought about it. About everything she could ask for. Then she smiled. She said she just wanted one thing. A friend who appreciated a good thirst-quenching story. Could Vex manage that for the next 97 years? The ancient dragon, freed after 3 centuries by a stubborn human's refusal to give up, laughed. The sound echoed to the chamber like music, like thunder, like hope made audible. Vex said that could be arranged. 3 months later, the tribunal reconvened. Kate testified for 6 hours. She presented evidence, shared her experiences, and spoke truth to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The verdict took 3 days to reach. Elder Vex was exonerated. The imprisonment was declared unjust. The moon colony survivors, now elderly, testified that the dragon had saved their lives. The original orders were revealed to have been based on false intelligence. The dragon who had chosen mercy over orders was finally vindicated, and the human who had chosen compassion over survival had changed the course of galactic justice. Kate stood beside Vex as the verdict was read. Partners to the end. 2 beings from different worlds who had found each other in the most unlikely place, who had saved each other in ways that went beyond physical survival. They had given each other hope. And sometimes